Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful. Today I'll stay in Italy with him. Brooke agrees to marry Nick and refuses to return to LA with Ridge. To everyone's surprise, Brooke picks Nick. On the Bold and the Beautiful, Brooke Logan has been waiting months for Ridge Forrester to recognize her as his true love. But was it a few minutes too late when he eventually figured it out? In Naples, Italy, fireworks are in the air. But Brooke might change his mind at the last minute. Below are spoilers for what will happen next on Bold and Beautiful. On the daytime soap opera, Brooke Logan has been pleading with Ridge Forrester for a second chance for months. Ridge claims to have moved on from his ex, yet he insisted on becoming engaged to Taylor Hayes. Forrester: Ridge, it's too late now. It's easy to tell that Ridge still has feelings for Brooke, and Italy is rekindling many of those romantic feelings. According to spoilers for Bold and the Beautiful, he will face some opposition when he chooses to approach Brooke in Naples. Nick Marone is making every effort to pop the question to Brooke while he is in Europe. Brooke admitted to Ridge throughout their week together that she's sick of arguing with him. The prospect of getting married to her other ex-boyfriend Nick Marone would be refreshing and the change Brooke has been seeking. Things get shaken up by Brooke Logan. Brooke Logan is going to have to decide. After he left her for Taylor Hayes, will she be hesitant to return to Ridge? Or will Brooke shut Ridge down and tell him to go back to his fiancée, shocking both Ridge and the viewers at home? This is the reason Brooke is blind. It appears that Brooke Logan is completely oblivious to this one issue. This is due to the fact that she continues to pursue a man like Ridge Forrester despite the fact that he has said some of the most degrading things about her daughter, Hope Logan. For this reason, Brooke is blind. Not to mention that Ridge, among other things, called Hope a slut. Additionally, Brooke continues to seek and lust after Ridge rather than throwing him out. Have you ever stood up for your daughter? Where are the morals of this woman? Even better, is she not at all in love with Hope? Naturally, B&B fans on the internet had a lot to say about the issue. Some even said in their comments, "I like Brooke, but I can't support her and Ridge. He deserves to be left alone because he is a POS. She must be the one to declare that they will not be reconciling." Nearly every character has been reduced to a means of delivering a tale for Ridge or Steffi. What is there to cheer for in this situation? Is Brooke's daughter unloved? Right, wrote another show critic. Particularly considering that his own children have had a very troubled past. Brooke doesn't call his children derogatory names. Hopefully, Hope tells Ridge to stop and brings up his derogatory remarks about her, and I hope she does it in front of Deacon. Additionally, this comment was made, "I wish Brooke and Taylor would give up on him. He has been jumping between them for decades." The fact that Brooke doesn't care and still wants Ridge despite the fact that he essentially cheated on her with Taylor again isn't helping that for months and months. Ridge Forrester, the magnetic, mercurial love of her tumultuous life, would finally see the wreckage of their past not as insurmountable ruins, but as the foundation upon which their enduring, undeniable connection could be rebuilt. She had pleaded, she had wept, she had laid her heart bare on the anvil of his indifference, each rejection a hammer blow echoing with the ghosts of their countless breakups and makeups. She watched, a silent specter in her own story, as Ridge, armored in stubborn pride and perhaps a misplaced sense of obligation, not only pushed her away but actively pursued an engagement with Taylor Hayes, her eternal rival, declaring with a finality that felt like a physical wound that he had moved on. Naples, Italy, bathed in golden Mediterranean light and steeped in romance, was meant to be the culmination of this painful waiting game, a place where destinies collide amidst ancient beauty. Brooke arrived yearning for a miracle, for Ridge's eyes to finally clear, for him to recognize her not as a complication, but as his essential truth. The air crackled with unspoken history, the very stones seeming to whisper of their passionate past. And indeed, Italy worked its potent magic on Ridge. The proximity, the intoxicating ambience, the sheer weight of their shared decades began to erode the defensive walls he'd so carefully constructed. Bold and Beautiful spoilers hinted at an impending shift, a moment where Ridge, overwhelmed by the resurgence of feelings he could no longer deny, feelings visible to everyone except, perhaps, himself, would finally reach for Brooke, ready to shatter his engagement and claim her once more. The stage seemed set for the grand, tearful reconciliation Brooke had dreamt of, the validation of her months of suffering, the triumphant return of Bridge against all odds. Yet, fate, and Brooke Logan herself, had a different, utterly shocking script in mind. Just as Ridge gathered the courage to act, just as the familiar pull of their legendary chemistry threatened to sweep her off her feet once again, Brooke found herself confronted not by one man seeking to reclaim her, but by another offering a radically different future. Nick Marone, her steadfast, uncomplicated ex-husband, had arrived in Naples with a singular, unwavering purpose: to propose. Unlike Ridge's chaotic, last-minute emotional surge, Nick's approach was deliberate, grounded, and brimming with genuine adoration. He wasn't fueled by rivalry or sudden panic, he was driven by a deep, consistent love and a profound understanding of the woman Brooke was now, not just the tempestuous soul she had been. He saw her exhaustion, her emotional bruises, her quiet desperation for stability, and he offered not a battlefield, but a sanctuary. This week, a pivotal confession had escaped Brooke's lips, a truth heavy with the weight of years of heartache. She told Ridge she was bone-tired of their endless, destructive cycle, the dizzying highs of reunion crashing inevitably into the devastating lows of betrayal, abandonment, and public humiliation. The games, the manipulations, the constant uncertainty had drained her spirit. The idea of marrying Nick, whispered amidst the Italian splendor, began to resonate not as a consolation prize, but as a profound revelation. It represented peace. It promised respect. It offered a love built on quiet strength and unwavering presence, a stark contrast to the exhausting emotional roller coaster Ridge personified. The specter of Nick's proposal wasn't just romantic, it was a lifeline thrown to a woman drowning in Ridge's indecision. It symbolized a future devoid of the constant comparison to Taylor, free from the whiplash of Ridge's shifting loyalties, a chance to breathe deeply without the suffocating anxiety of when the next betrayal would come. Brooke stood on the precipice, forced to make a choice that would reverberate through her life and the canvas of the show. Would she succumb, as she had countless times before, to the gravitational pull of her destiny with Ridge, crawling back despite his recent abandonment for Taylor, ready to excuse his lateness as she always had? Or would she find the strength, born from sheer exhaustion and a dawning sense of self-worth, to finally break the chain? What unfolded next was a moment of television history, a seismic shift delivered not with a scream, but with a devastating, resonant silence. As Ridge, perhaps sensing the ground shifting beneath him, made his move, pouring out his belated realizations, his declarations of love finally spoken with conviction, reaching for her with the passion that had defined their epic saga, Brooke Logan did the unthinkable. She didn't melt. She didn't surrender. She didn't launch into a tirade. She simply stilled. Looking into the eyes of the man who had been her sun, her moon, her entire chaotic universe for longer than she cared to remember, Brooke saw not just the love she craved, but the pattern. She saw the years of pain caused by his indecision, the humiliation of being left for Taylor yet again, the certainty that this moment, however sincere it felt in the Italian moonlight, was likely just another turn in their endless, destructive dance. The fire hadn't gone out, it had been replaced by a profound weariness. When she spoke, her voice was calm, low, carrying the weight of finality. "No, Ridge." The words hung in the air, simple, yet earth-shattering. "It's too late. You are too late." The shock that registered on Ridge's face was mirrored in living rooms across the world. She didn't yell about Taylor, she didn't rehash old betrayals. She simply stated the truth he could no longer deny: his timing was fatal. "You chose Taylor," she continued, her gaze steady, unflinching. "You moved on. You built a life with her. You asked her to marry you. My begging, my waiting, it changed nothing for you until you felt ready, until you felt the pull. But I'm done waiting for you to decide when my heart matters. Go home, Ridge. Go home to your fiancé." The rejection was absolute, not born of hatred, but of a fierce, hard-won self-preservation. It was Brooke Logan finally choosing her own peace over the addictive poison of their passion. And then, turning her back on the shattered visage of Ridge Forrester, the man whose approval had defined her for decades, Brooke walked towards Nick Marone. Meeting his steady, loving gaze, filled with hope but devoid of pressure, she offered a small, genuine smile, the first unburdened one in months. When Nick, his heart laid bare, knelt and presented the ring, Brooke didn't hesitate. Her yes was clear, deliberate, a conscious choice for a different kind of love. It wasn't a rejection of love itself, but a rejection of chaos. She chose the man who offered unwavering support instead of conditional affection, the man who built her up instead of breaking her down, the man whose proposal was a promise of calm harbor after a lifetime of storms. Brooke Logan, the eternal romantic, the woman defined by her relentless pursuit of Ridge Forrester, had finally shocked everyone, including herself. She chose Nick. She chose peace. She chose herself. And in that stunning Naples moment, amidst the ruins of Bridge, a new, unexpected chapter began, proving that sometimes, the most shocking twist isn't a return to the old flame, but the courageous lighting of a new, steadier one. The reverberations of that yes would not only leave Ridge utterly devastated and facing an impossible future with Taylor, but would irrevocably alter the power dynamics of Forrester Creations and redefine Brooke Logan's legacy on the show, transforming the woman who always fought for Ridge into the woman who finally walked away. Brooke Logan Forrester stood poised on the precipice of a decision that would irrevocably fracture one world and ignite another. The air itself crackled, thick with the scent of aged wood, beeswax candles, and the intoxicating perfume of wildflowers clinging to the hills outside, yet beneath these sensory delights lay a suffocating tension, a silent scream held within the chests of the three souls bound in this crucible. Nick Marone, his usually confident demeanor softened by a vulnerability so raw it was almost painful to witness, knelt before her, his eyes, deep pools of earnest hope and unwavering devotion, locked onto hers, the simple platinum band in his trembling hand catching the light, a silent, potent question hanging in the sacred silence. Behind her, radiating an icy storm of disbelief, fury, and a desperate, primal possessiveness, stood Ridge Forrester, the magnetic force who had pulled Brooke back into his orbit time and time again across decades of tangled passion, betrayal, and an undeniable, almost gravitational pull that defined the very rhythm of her tumultuous life. He had flown across an ocean, fueled by a frantic conviction that Brooke belonged with him, to him, that their destiny, however scarred, was written in the stars and the shared history of Forrester Creations. His presence was a physical weight, a reminder of the tempestuous sea she was contemplating abandoning for the solid, sun-drenched shore Nick offered. In that suspended moment, the chapel became a microcosm of Brooke's entire existence, the chaotic, passionate whirlwind of her past with Ridge, embodied in his imposing, expectant figure, versus the serene, affirming promise of a future bathed in Italian sunlight, represented by Nick's open, waiting heart. The pressure was immense, a crushing weight of history, obligation, familial expectation, especially the weight of hope's potential reaction, and the terrifying unknown. She could feel Ridge's gaze boring into her back, a silent command, an echo of countless reconciliations, each promising permanence only to unravel. She could feel Nick's hopeful anticipation, a warmth radiating towards her, promising peace, stability, a love that asked for nothing more than she was willing to give now, not the ghost of who she used to be. Memories flashed, the dizzying highs with Ridge, the devastating betrayals, the cycle of destruction and reconstruction that left her perpetually emotionally winded. Contrasted sharply were the recent weeks in Italy, Nick's patient understanding as she grappled with her feelings, his unwavering support without suffocating demand, the profound sense of being seen for who she was in the present moment, not measured against past mistakes or future expectations. Italy wasn't just a location, it had become a state of mind, a symbol of liberation from the gilded cage of Los Angeles drama, a place where the Logan in her could breathe freely, unburdened by the Forrester legacy. Taking a deep, shuddering breath that seemed to draw in the very essence of the Tuscan light, Brooke felt a profound stillness descend within her chaos, a clarity cutting through the noise like a laser. The fear of Ridge's wrath, the potential fallout with her family, the daunting prospect of truly breaking the cycle, these anxieties didn't vanish, but they were suddenly dwarfed by a burgeoning, unshakable conviction. Yes, the word escaped her lips, quiet at first, a fragile bud unfurling, then gaining strength, blooming into a resonant declaration that filled the ancient chapel. Yes, Nick. I will marry you. It was more than acceptance, it was a seismic shift, the sound of change she hadn't fully acknowledged shattering. Relief, pure and radiant, flooded Nick's face as he slid the ring onto her finger, a symbol not just of commitment, but of a hard-won choice. But the moment wasn't complete. She turned, slowly, deliberately, to face Ridge. His expression was a masterpiece of shock, crumbling into raw, undisguised agony, his carefully constructed world of assumptions imploding. Before he could unleash the torrent of protest she knew simmered beneath the surface, Brooke found her voice again, infused with a strength forged in the fires of her own epiphany. "And Ridge," she stated, her voice steady, unwavering, echoing with a finality that brooked no argument, "I'm not going back to Los Angeles with you. I'm staying here. In Italy. With him." Those last two words, "with him," were not spoken with malice, but with a profound, grounding certainty. They were a declaration of independence, a renunciation of the toxic dance that had defined her for too long. She wasn't choosing Nick over Ridge in the old, competitive sense, she was choosing herself. Choosing peace over perpetual drama, choosing a love that felt like sanctuary over one that felt like a battlefield. Choosing the sunlit vineyards over the gilded cage. Choosing to finally step off the emotional roller coaster Ridge represented, even if it meant walking away from the intoxicating, destructive high. Ridge's face contorted, a storm of disbelief, betrayal, and wounded pride. "Brooke, you don't mean this. This isn't you. Think about hope. Think about us. Our history." But his words, once so powerful, so capable of swaying her resolve, now sounded distant, like an echo from a life she was leaving behind. Brooke met his gaze, not with defiance, but with a profound, sorrowful understanding. "I am thinking, Ridge. I'm thinking about my life. My peace. Our history, it's brought us pain as much as passion. I love you, Ridge," she admitted, the truth of it still resonating, "a part of me always will. But that love, it consumes me. It destroys me. It destroys us. Nick, he sees me. He accepts me now, as I am. He offers me calm. He offers me a future I can breathe in. And I want that. I need that. I'm staying." The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than stone. Ridge looked utterly shattered, the invincible titan brought low not by an enemy, but by the quiet, unassailable strength of Brooke's resolve. He had gambled everything on her predictable pattern, on the irresistible pull of destiny, and lost. Nick stood beside Brooke, a solid, protective presence, his hand finding hers, their joined hands a silent testament to the new path chosen. Brooke's decision, crystallized in the Tuscan chapel, was far more than agreeing to marry Nick Marone. It was a radical act of self-preservation and self-definition. "I'll stay in Italy with him," was the battle cry of a woman finally prioritizing her own well-being over a legendary, yet ultimately corrosive, love story. It was a refusal to be pulled back into the vortex of Ridge's world, a world of intense passion but equally intense pain, of perpetual crisis and conditional acceptance. In choosing Nick and Italy, Brooke wasn't just choosing a man or a place, she was choosing sanity over chaos, serenity over storm, and the courageous, terrifying, exhilarating possibility of writing a new chapter for Brooke Logan, one where she was finally, unequivocally, the author of her own destiny, bathed in the warm, unwavering light of the Italian sun. Brooke Logan's persistent, almost gravitational pull towards Ridge Forrester, despite his unforgivable, deeply humiliating public evisceration of her own daughter, Hope Logan, stands as one of the most jarring and morally perplexing character beats in The Bold and the Beautiful, revealing a profound blindness not born of physical sight, but of a crippling emotional dependency, a lifetime of romantic obsession, and a staggering willingness to sacrifice maternal loyalty on the altar of a toxic, cyclical relationship. The specific catalyst for this current wave of fan outrage and disbelief is stark and undeniable. Ridge Forrester, in a fit of pique and misplaced anger, weaponized the most damaging language possible against Hope, explicitly labeling her a slut among other degrading epithets. A verbal assault that wasn't a private spat but a public shaming designed to inflict maximum pain and damage her reputation within their tightly knit, judgmental social and familial circle. This act wasn't merely insensitive, it was a calculated, brutal betrayal that targeted Hope's character, dignity, and standing, exploiting vulnerabilities and wielding societal stigma as a cudgel. Yet, in the devastating aftermath of this father figure turning predator with his words, Brooke Logan's reaction has been nothing short of bewildering. Instead of the fierce, protective maternal rage one would instinctively expect, instead of banishing Ridge from her life with the finality such an egregious offense demands, she remains trapped in the same agonizing pattern, pining for him, excusing him, actively wanting him back, her gaze seemingly fixed solely on the ghost of their turbulent past and the fleeting highs of their connection, rendering her utterly blind to the scorched earth his cruelty left around her daughter. This blindness manifests as a deafening silence where a mother's roar should be. It translates into a continued pursuit of the man who viciously attacked her child, sending a chilling message that Ridge's presence in her life somehow outweighs the fundamental duty to shield and defend her own flesh and blood. Where, fans scream at their screens, are Brooke Logan's morals in this equation? What bedrock principle allows the man who called her daughter a slut to remain a viable romantic prospect, let alone the supposed love of her life? It forces the agonizing question, does Brooke truly love Hope at all, or is that love conditional, secondary to the all-consuming vortex of her fixation on Ridge? The deafening silence of her unequivocal defense, the absence of a clear, unwavering stance with Hope against Ridge, speaks volumes, suggesting that her loyalty is horrifyingly fractured, prioritizing the dysfunctional dance with Ridge over the sacred bond with her child. This perceived abandonment hasn't gone unnoticed by the show's passionate audience, whose online discourse erupts with a mixture of fury, disappointment, and profound confusion directed squarely at Brooke's choices. One fan articulates the widespread sentiment, stating, "I like Brooke, but I can't get behind her and Ridge. He's a POS and deserves to be alone. She needs to be the one to say that they aren't getting back together," pinpointing the core issue. The power to end this toxic cycle rests with Brooke, yet she refuses to wield it, perpetuating Ridge's destructive influence. Others critique the narrative engine itself, lamenting, they've made almost every character just a vehicle to tell a story for Steffi or Ridge. What's there to root for in that, highlighting how Brooke's character assassination in service of the Ridge-centric plot diminishes her integrity and the audience's ability to empathize. The hypocrisy is glaring, as another viewer sharply observes, right? Especially when his own kids have extremely problematic and checkered pasts. You don't see Brooke calling his kids names, underscoring the double standard Brooke implicitly accepts. Ridge's children are afforded grace and understanding, often from Brooke herself, while Hope is subjected to his vilest insults without her mother mounting a proportionate defense. The fervent hope among fans now rests with Hope herself, with comments like, "Fingers crossed Hope tells Ridge where to get off and brings up his calling her ugly names and I